I accept." That was all he uttered. And in that instant, heaven held its breath. Michael, with a grave expression, turned his gaze toward the depths. Raphael, unable to face what was about to happen, looked away. The portals began to open, but not the portals of glory. It was then that Uriel stepped forward, carrying in his hands the seals of spiritual authority, and in his eyes burned the relentless flame of judgment. He had not been summoned to battle, but to descend, to seal what needed to be confined, to enter the forbidden threshold that not even the bravest among the angels dared to contemplate, the abyss. While humanity continued to believe that the true war was being fought between the celestial heights and the realms of shadow, a silent operation was unfolding, invisible even to the most devout. A clandestine mission, ignored by the altars and forgotten in the schools of sacred teaching. A mission that sought neither redemption nor conquest, but confinement, sealing, and oblivion. It was Uriel who descended where others would never dare. And ever since, even heaven preferred not to speak his name. This story is not about angels who ascended wrapped in glory, but about the only one who descended, whose echo was buried in oblivion. Today we will speak of the forgotten custodian of the Scriptures, of the silent executor of the divine will, of the bearer of the sword of fire and guardian of eternal secrets. Today we will speak of Uriel, and of what his eyes beheld in the depths where light barely dares to enter. Are you prepared to know a truth that was silenced for centuries? Perhaps you have never heard the name of Uriel in sermons or songs. It is not a coincidence. Stay here, because this conversation is not for fearful ears. While the tales exalt Michael, the great celestial captain, and paint Lucifer as the angel tragically fallen in his arrogance, little is said about the forgotten sentinel. But Uriel was different. He was not a mere spectator of divine events. He was walking fire. His very name means the flame of God, and where darkness spread, he advanced like a living spark, incandescent and silent. Now imagine. In the midst of a court of perfect beings of light, there was one who not only illuminated but burned intensely. His sword was not an ordinary blade. It was an extension of the eternal fire itself, a seal forged in the essence of creation. Long before Adam drew his first breath, long before the drama of the fall, Uriel had already been summoned to guard the gates of Eden. A detail few mention, supported by ancient texts that now lie forgotten, but which reveal a picture very different from what is taught. While the first man was still but a sigh in the divine mind, Uriel was already watching over the garden with eyes capable of seeing beyond form and time. What made him so unique among the celestial hosts? It was not his strength nor his splendor. It was his ability to gaze into the abyss without losing himself to madness. An attribute feared, respected, and at the same time, misunderstood. It was whispered among the angels. For yes, even in the eternal realm echoes run, that Uriel could hear the cry of the seals before they were broken. It was not a talent to be sought after, but a burden few could bear. Some called it a gift, others saw it as a curse. Uriel was like that silent relative in every lineage, the one everyone respects, but few invite to sit at the table. He was the watchman of the forbidden, the one who knew secrets no one wished to remember, the custodian of horrors sealed in the deepest corners of existence. And it is precisely here where the great question arises. Why was his name erased from collective memory, while others were celebrated? Perhaps because his story does not speak of glorious ascents, but of a relentless descent. An angel who descends does not bring comfort, but unease. Even more so when he descends with the authority and the seals of heaven in his possession. Uriel did not merely accept this burden. He embraced it, carrying in his eyes the weight of burning mysteries. Secrets that could not be shared, truths too scorching to be told. It was said that his very presence purified not only deeds but the hidden intentions of the heart. Every time Uriel set foot in a place, even the most illustrious angels fell silent. It was not fear, it was reverence before something they could not fully comprehend. If Michael was the warrior of light, and Raphael the healer of wounds, Uriel was the executor of sealed orders, the one who saw corruption even before it could take root. And here, dear listener, is where we step into dangerous ground. Because if Uriel could gaze upon darkness without being consumed, what would happen when he was sent directly into the heart of those shadows? It was in a hidden time, between the accounts of Genesis and the fragments of forgotten scriptures, that tragedy took form. Angels, yes, beings of light created to guard order, turned their gaze toward the earth. And it was not the vastness of the firmament nor the wonder of creation that captured their attention, but the daughters of men. 200 of them, led by names that lips fear to utter, sealed among themselves a forbidden pact. They abandoned their duties and took human wives. The result was devastating. The Nephilim, colossal creatures, living deformations of the original design. They were beings so monstrous that not even the most fantastic narratives of modern cinema dare to describe their true horror. The earth trembled, and not with admiration, but with terror. The natural harmony was torn apart by those who were supposed to protect it. These beings, known as Watchers, instead of watching over humanity, allowed themselves to be seduced by it. Their fall left scars so deep that even the Book of Enoch, that ancient text relegated to oblivion, painfully recorded the spiritual collapse. And guess who reappeared in that story? That's right, when corruption reached its climax, the Most High decreed eternal imprisonment until the day of judgment. Direct and without negotiations. But here arises the question that few dare to ask. Who would dare to carry out such a sentence? Who would be capable of facing 200 fallen angels, wrapped in rage and corrupted power? Michael, the invincible, declined. Raphael, the protector, hesitated. Gabriel, the messenger, remained silent. And then, all eyes turned toward the only one who had never averted his gaze from the depths. Uriel. Without uttering a word, without demanding recognition, he accepted the forbidden mission. Someone had to carry the heavenly seals and bind the transgressors, and he knew his destiny was intertwined with that solitary and definitive act. This time, the flaming sword was not enough. Uriel carried something even more severe. An absolute authority, an irrefutable order. Upon seeing Uriel, the fallen angels did not brandish weapons, nor did they roar in defiance. Some fell to their knees, others shed bitter tears. But the decree left no room for mercy. From afar, other angels watched the scene, unable to approach. Perhaps out of fear, perhaps out of shame. Because when one of our own falls, it is always easier to look the other way. But Uriel did not look the other way. Uriel was descending. And in his descent, something began to change in his essence. It was not degradation nor corruption, but a deeper, more ancient transformation. As if his true nature, the one written in the secret folds of heaven, was finally being revealed. As he sealed, one by one, the names of the fallen, a shudder ran through that place. Because among the faces deformed by rebellion, Uriel recognized one. A face that had once shared with him the primordial light. What does one do when the mission confronts you with an ancient brother? What decision is made when sealing another also means sealing a part of oneself? There is no staircase to the abyss. There are no golden portals nor celestial melodies. There is only the fall, long, silent, crushing. Uriel did not walk toward the abyss. He was called, drawn by an order that burned within him like a glowing coal. He carried in his hands not a visible weapon, but spiritual seals, seals imbued with the eternal word. The gates of hell are not as they are imagined. There are no tridents nor dancing flames in plain sight. Hell, dear listener, is absolute darkness. A darkness denser than the space between two lightning bolts. The ground was not ground, it was void. Time did not flow, it simply did not exist. And the screams did not come from a single place, nor did they have a single origin. They rose from everywhere and from nowhere. There, in that spiritual prison, the condemned watchers awaited, trapped until the final judgment. And Uriel, the angel forgotten by songs, was now the guardian of their chains. He did not brandish his sword. He did not need to. He carried with him something even more powerful, the sealed authority of heaven and the gaze of one who had beheld the abyss, and had returned to seal it, without hesitation. If one could even call it a step, each movement of Uriel was more like a whisper of divine fire than an earthly walk. He felt the names of the fallen burn in his chest like living embers. He did not need to seek them out. They sensed his approach even before his shadow reached them. They tried to hide, futilely. The fire of God guided him like a burning torch in a cosmic tomb with no escape. One by one, the 200 fallen angels were located, bound by spiritual seals that no rebellious power could break. The Nephilim, those titanic creatures born of corruption, could barely emit weak sighs, echoes of a perverted glory. But, in the deepest part of that descent, Uriel found something that even the forgotten texts dared not record. It was not a mere rebellious angel. It was someone who had once shared the same light as he did. A brother of essence, of origin. No forbidden manuscript, no scroll lost in the shadows of monasteries, mentioned him. But Uriel knew. And in that instant, for a fraction of a second, even the celestial seal he carried faltered in his hand. It was not the mission that weighed on him, but the memory. The echo of a past where both had walked together under the purity of the first dawn. But Uriel did not hesitate. He sealed that name with a firmness he had not shown with any of the others. Perhaps out of respect. Perhaps out of silent sorrow. Or perhaps because he understood that, by chaining his brother, a part of himself would also remain trapped forever in the depths where eternity wears away like an unhealed wound. Uriel began to understand that his forbidden mission was much more than a simple act of obedience. It was a personal calling, a spiritual mark that irrevocably bound him to the darkest secret of the abyss. When he placed the last seal, something within him changed. The light he radiated did not disappear, but it was transformed. It was not a fall, it was not corruption, but a darkening born from the knowledge he had absorbed. He was no longer simply a celestial messenger. Uriel had become the guardian of the abyss, the watcher of hell. And when he returned, if he truly returned, he was not the same. He carried something with him that not even the wisest angels dared to name. Thus was born the Pact of Silence. Those who claimed to have seen him afterward, and they were very few, said that his eyes no longer shone as before. It was not a loss of light. It was an excess of shadows. A darkness that did not consume but weighed upon the soul like an invisible shroud. Because whoever carries upon his shoulders the secrets of the abyss and the names of the fallen can no longer walk among his own as just another one. Uriel became the angel who guarded the silence of hell, the sentinel who walked among invisible portals, carrying within himself the echoes of a spiritual prison. The other angels began to avoid him, not out of fear of his power, but because of the weight of what he knew. Uriel was now the bearer of a pact that neither the passing of time nor death itself, if angels can indeed die, could ever break. He spoke little, and when he did, his words sounded like echoes of truths no ear wished to hear. That is why, little by little, the texts that mentioned him began to disappear. First from the pulpits, then from the translations, finally from the sacred books themselves. A meticulously woven oblivion. The Book of Enoch spoke of him, and not in whispers, but in cries silenced by censorship. Especially the Ethiopian Enoch, where his name burned between the lines. Other echoes survived in works like the Zohar, and in dusty manuscripts safeguarded in remote abbeys, where wisdom hides even from those who guard it. It is said that in those forgotten scrolls, the name of Uriel still shines like a forbidden flame. Uriel, the forgotten angel, the one who never fully returned. The one who, like every myth, became a threat. because there are truths so deep that even heaven itself prefers not to remember them. What Uriel saw in the abyss cannot be expressed in words. Perhaps that is why he chose to remain silent forever. Uriel became the watcher of the spiritual portals, the silent guardian who watched as humanity once again approached the same original error that once unleashed catastrophe. And the most unsettling thing is that his name ceased to be spoken, as if merely mentioning it could open irreparable cracks in reality. But the rumors persist. And like all rumors, they have one foot in truth and one in fear. They say that Uriel still remains down there, in the invisible depths, not to watch over the fallen, but to protect the living. And that his silent vigil is what prevents chaos from returning. Because if Uriel ever breaks the pact of silence, if he ever abandons his post, what else might be unleashed? What forbidden seals would be broken? What buried truths would tear the veil of accepted theology? And if it truly is he, the same angel who carries the key to the bottomless pit mentioned in the ancient prophecies, then, dear listener, we have not yet seen the true beginning of what is to come. The abyss. Could it be that Uriel's mission is not yet over? Or are we about to witness its true restart? It is not in just any book where his name resurfaces in the final times. Curiously, it appears just as the foundations of the world begin to tremble. In chapter 9 of Revelation, a key is mentioned. A key to the abyss. An angel descends carrying it. And when he opens the portal, what emerges from there is neither poetry nor redemption. The question that has whispered for centuries among the shadows of forbidden theology is direct and terrifying. And if that angel is Uriel, the same one who once descended in silence, now ascending with an even darker purpose. They say that Uriel is not simply an executor. He is the angel of judgment, the bearer of divine fire, no longer to seal sins, but to consume everything that has been corrupted. If once he closed the gates of the abyss with firm hands, now he would come to break the locks of oblivion, not to warn, not to invite repentance, but to execute the sentence sealed since the first days. Who else could judge the fallen, if not the one who knew them personally? Uriel does not forget the faces he chained. He knows where the ancient seals rest. He knows the secrets buried beyond human memory. That is why, when he returns, it will not be with mercy in his eyes, but with a flaming sword, a reflection of unappealable justice. The gates of the abyss will not remain closed. They will be thrown wide open. And the screams that once echoed in the bowels of the earth will rise like harrowing echoes toward the heavens. Because the watcher of hell does not return to warn. He returns to fulfill. He, who was always a spark in the darkness, now becomes the lightning that precedes the final judgment. And although history tried to erase his name, his return will be a roar impossible to ignore. No one who has carried a silenced mission for ages returns without reason. Uriel returns, or is about to, because the appointed time has come. Because the seals he once protected are beginning to crack. Because the forbidden texts, those that hid his deeds, can no longer be buried. And because the truth, no matter how much it is buried under layers of fear and oblivion, always resurfaces. Perhaps, just perhaps, that is the true reason why his name stirs unease. Because Uriel is much more than a forgotten angel. He is the guardian of the abyss, the one who descended where others feared to look, and who now could be ascending once more, not as a savior, but as the executor of the oldest spiritual pact of the cosmos. Everything that was sealed will be judged. Now I ask you, what if Uriel is already among us, silently awaiting the precise moment to unleash what has been contained for millennia? If they manage to erase his name from history, how many other truths could have been buried with him? And what if everything we have been taught about heaven and hell is merely a carefully edited fraction of the real story? Would you have the courage to look into the abyss, knowing that the abyss might look back at you? Uriel's story is not simply a forbidden tale. It is an urgent reminder, a call to recognize that there are invisible forces at work, even within ourselves. Forces that many prefer not to see. Before you leave, reflect. Could it be that you too carry something sealed within your soul? A calling, a forgotten mission, silently beating, waiting to be awakened? Comment down below what other secrets you believe were censored from biblical history. Let's continue this conversation and, together, unravel what they tried to keep hidden for centuries. And if you want to receive more revelations like this, buried stories, apocalyptic secrets, and truths they never told you in institutional religion, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. The next video might change everything you believe you know.